Well, we know that some populations or numbers of some groups of pollinators are declining. We don't know exactly what's happening to numbers of wild bees. Honeybee colonies have fallen in number but are now increasing again because more people are beekeeping, so those are managed bees. For the wild pollinators, what we know for sure is that there's been quite a big drop in diversity, both at national scale and at smaller scales, because species are dropping out of the species lists for particular areas, and that's been going on for a while. And this is a problem. It's partly a loss of biodiversity, which I think is something that society does not want to oversee. We don't want to be having degraded wild communities. It's also quite a serious problem because insects, particularly bees, are really important pollinators, which means that they are an important component in producing the seeds, both for fruit and seeds that become food products and for wild plants. Something really fortuitous in a way is that at the same time as the British government were building a national pollinator strategy for England, the Common Agricultural Policy in Europe was also going through a process of reform, and a new version of the Common Agricultural Policy was put in place from 2014 to 2020. And that actually generated a need to revisit and redesign the agri-environment schemes. So there was a coincidence of two different policies being developed at the same time, which is quite rare in policy, and it's very important in government and policy making to make sure your individual separate policies work together and don't conflict with each other. So because of that, policies can sometimes constrain other policies. But here we had a chance to develop an agri-environment scheme package or policy which suited the National Pollinator Strategy, and it gave the National Pollinator Strategy an opportunity to use the agri-environment schemes and focus a part of those just on pollinators. A great opportunity. It's also sometimes described as a policy window. This is something there's a chance to do this now. The agri-environment scheme redesign is going on now. Let's put something in there for pollinators.
So, as part of the design of the new countryside stewardship scheme, DEFRA approached Natural England to come up with a package of measures that would deliver the life cycle needs of wild pollinators, farm birds and other wildlife associated with the wider countryside. So Natural England approached a group of experts. We brought together a group of experts that would help us design that package. So we looked for practitioners, national scientists, key biodiversity NGOs to help us do that. We approached Lynn because we knew that she was doing some excellent work at Cambridge University on wild pollinators and bees. We looked at that research working with Lynn, and we applied that research to the package of measures that we were designing. And the key thing was that it was evidence-based, and it was all about putting in the right options in the right place and at the right scale to deliver the life cycle needs of wild pollinators. And that was key to the package that we've designed.
So this was an opportunity that came about during the course of 2014. And linking back to the research that's going on pollinators, there's really good research on what pollinators need and how it's provided by flowers in farmland from the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, from the University of Reading, University of Bristol, University of Leeds. There's been a lot of really great research and data on how much pollen there is in flowers, on how much nectar there is in flowers, on how many flowers there are in different agri-environment options. So we were able to bring that all together to try and answer this key policy question that forms the basis of a package of measures for pollinators, which is, well, first, which pollinators do we want to support? What do they need? How do we provide that? And most importantly, how much of each of those management options do we need to put in? This is Felicity Bedford, and she's a PhD student working with myself and Professor Bill Sutherland in the Department of Zoology at Cambridge. Felicity is working on these nectar and pollen and wild flower strips in farmland to see if she can find out how good they are for beneficial insects such as wild bees.
So what we're sitting in right now is a great example of a nectar pollen strip that is full of flowers. There's quite a lot of variability that we see across these nectar pollen strips. This one you can see is full of the trefoils and clovers that bees absolutely love. And you can see there's lots of other insect visitors here as well. There's lots of butterflies and hoverflies, and they're here because these flowers are particularly high in the nectar and pollen that they provide. So this is bird's foot trefoil, and we've got the white and the red clover that are growing here. And these are great for bumblebees because they provide so much nectar and pollen resources. They also are nitrogen fixers, so they're great for soil fertility. Another advantage of these different mixes. What we're seeing across different strips is that we've got different amounts of grasses coming through and swamping out these flowers which are beneficial to insects. So what we're trying to do is work out exactly what causes that variation in success between the strips and make recommendations to farmers so we can improve the resources that are being provided.
And one of the knowledge needs was what do insects need in the farmed environment? What can farmers do? And out of the second meeting came an idea which actually came from fruit growers particularly and generally from farmers. And it was what we need is a package of measures which are agri-environment options already incentivised under the agri-environment schemes, but we need a package of different things that if we do them all together, we can be confident it would help pollinators. And this involves understanding not just what pollinators need in the farmed environment, but also how much of each of those things farmers need to do in order to be sure of providing the right support.
We're growing about 8 tonnes of wheat per hectare on average in the UK. We probably could be getting up to 11, 12 tonnes a hectare, but only if we increase the intensification of our farming practices. That inevitably will be to the detriment of the environment, and so the balance of that is essentially around the field margins and the hedgerows. And if we can get planted in the field margins and the hedgerows those species of plants which are going to attract bees and other insects and feed them, then that is a vital contribution towards the farming effort.